So I retired 5 years ago as an obstetrician gynecologist. I delivered babies here in the Quad Cities for 23 years. I worked elsewhere for 2 years, and I completed 4 years of residency training. So if you add that all up, that's 29 years of delivering babies. So I have delivered enough babies to populate a medium-sized town in Iowa or in Illinois. And I can tell you, I learned a lot of things by doing that. But one of the most important was how hard and how arduous it is to have a baby. It's traumatic, and nobody should be expected or coerced to do that if they do not want to carry a pregnancy. It's just wrong. I'm going to try to concentrate on the medical aspects of this. You are 14 times, remember that number, 14 times more likely to die from a pregnancy-related complication than you are from an abortion. It is risky to carry a pregnancy, and abortion is safe. Of women in the US who become pregnant, around 20%, so that's 1 in 5, choose to terminate the pregnancy. So abortion is also very, very common. Almost all of us have family members or friends who've had an abortion. The vast majority, 90%, are done in the first trimester when it is safest. But at any stage in pregnancy, and remember this, that even in the second trimester, abortion is always safer for a woman than a pregnancy. The US also has a shockingly high maternal mortality rate. And I get sick and tired of people telling me that the US has the best, sorry, I'm gonna turn around and look at some of you too, has the best healthcare system in the US. Well, we don't. We don't. You are way more apt to die from a pregnancy if you deliver your baby in the United States than if you go north to Canada. In fact, that's probably the safest thing to do. If you're pregnant and you don't want to die, move to Canada. You are also less apt to die if you live in any of the European countries or if you live in Australia or New Zealand. And there are many reasons for that. One is that we do not have universal health care. The people in charge, high percentage men, sorry Ken, in the US, believe that healthcare is a privilege and not a right. It is a right in a civilized country. We also know that, and we could touch on this briefly, that Black and Indigenous women die 2 to 3 times as frequently as their white counterparts due to systemic inequality. I did take care of a patient who died, and I hope nobody else has to see this. Sorry, just a quick reminder that if anybody wants to sign up again for Progressive Action's weekly sign up, head over to that table after this. So I did have a patient die during residency, and it was absolutely gruesome. She was in her mid-20s, younger than the age of my daughter. And she had an emergency cesarean section, and for some reason, which we never determined, she developed acute respiratory distress syndrome about a half an hour after her cesarean section. She was admitted to the ICU, and I took care of her every day until she died. It was terrible, and I hope nobody ever has to see that. So I'm gonna kind of try to wrap up, but Justice Alito said, the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Well, of course it doesn't, because the US Constitution was written in 1787. By men, by white men who owned property. You also had to own property. There is no record of any discussion about women or their rights at any point during the Constitutional Convention. Women did not have a separate legal existence apart from their husbands. And it was an additional 130 years until we had the right to vote and represent ourselves as full citizens. Enslaved people in the Constitution were counted as 3/5 of a person. That's 60%. And this is the document that we're basing our modern laws on. Sorry, it needs to be redone. There is also no place in the Constitution that guarantees a right to abortion, because the very techniques and medications that we use to terminate a pregnancy were not available at that time. So if you remember very quickly, anesthesia wasn't even available until the 19th century. Antibiotics weren't available until the 20th century. Suction curettage, which is how medical abortions are performed, that was not devised until around the 1960s. And the two medications we commonly use to medically terminate a pregnancy, misoprostol and mifepristone, were 1973, and 2000 was when mifepristone was approved in the US. So these are recent. So of course the Constitution does not guarantee a right to abortion. That doesn't mean that we don't still have that right or should not have that right. A word of caution, medical abortion, there's been a lot written about it. It's very, very safe, but it can only be used up to 10 weeks in a pregnancy. So there are many women who present after 10 weeks and they need a procedure to have an abortion. Sorry. So a few words of hope, because it's hard to feel anything but down at this point. I heard someone say today we are in a fast-moving river, and we are. I feel like on Friday, somebody dumped me into the river, fully clothed with heavy boots on. But you know what? We kicked off those boots, and we know how to swim, and when we're tired of swimming, we can float, and I think we're gonna make that down that river. This is a long, winding river, but we are good swimmers.